So, customer meltdowns and the 5-minute recovery plan. Well, I want to really emphasize from the beginning that this doesn't just apply to external customers. In fact, I'd be quite keen to actually get rid of the whole us and them customers and colleagues thing, because I think it's a false dichotomy. When you really think about it, what we're trying to do in our jobs as a team leader or a manager or a director is trying to clear the way for people to do their jobs. Starbucks a number of years ago came up with the notion of the servant leader, or at least I think it was them. Somebody correct me if they read it somewhere else first. But that is all about the leader being at the service of their teams. And that's how I think about customers. The endeavour, I think, that we should be aiming for is to get people to think about everybody around them as somebody that they not just need to be nice to, that would be nice anyway, but everybody around them is someone who needs their help and someone who they can help and should and could treat as if they were the paying end customer. So firstly, let's go to when it all goes wrong. So that's the background thinking that I'm having here, is about why do we have to make the distinction between customers and colleagues. So here's a frequent scenario, and this is the one we're starting with. So anybody in a customer facing organization, and particularly if you're right at the front end, you know there is this sense of foreboding when something is bound to go wrong. I mean, no matter how slick your operation is, things don't always go according to plan. And very often what happens is that when something does go wrong, it follows a familiar routine. Firstly, the tirade, the invective, the phone calls, the emails, when it just all seems like it can't get any worse. And then what's happening during this time? Well, we feel disabled. There's a lot of feelings flying around, and the disablement is an intellectual one. You will be familiar with freezing, with your brain going a bit nuts, as it does indeed for me sometimes. Let me give you an example. I've got lots of different things that I need to play around with on my desktop here to make the different pictures and stuff appear. And sometimes if I get a little bit out of sequence, or I can't quite find the one that I need in the pane that I'm in, the control pane, I don't want to panic. And goodness knows I've done this so many times. But instantly I'm gripped. Oh my God, I can't find it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And I'm trying to be terribly professional and make it all flow. And so then I have some of this brain freeze, some of this, I don't know what to do. I don't even know what to think or how to string a sentence. And that's the thing that I'm depicting here in front of us, is where this stuff's raining down on us and we often can't do very much. And we start to gabble. I talk too much. I can't think straight. And so we all have our particular retreats, where we go to, what happens to us when things fall apart. And then typically the next thing that happens is that we have to find a way to apologise. And frequently we just spend a lot of energy apologising. Now, the reason we apologise, of course, is to stop the tirade, is to try and beg forgiveness. We think that if we say sorry, it will all go away, that the person will become rational again. Now, think of yourself in the traditional customer role. Remember what it was like when somebody was apologising to you repeatedly for having done the wrong thing or having misdelivered, or when something went wrong. How satisfying and satisfactory was it for you? And typically, in the ordinary pattern of things, what happens next is that we go into frantic repair mode. We try and prop up the situation. And what happens is, because it's rushed and because we're not thinking straight, as a senior leader, we might bark out a lot of orders If we're lucky, our experience will have us barking out the right kinds of orders. We will almost certainly always overkill because we're in that defensive space. And if we're lucky, we've been mobilized with some aggression, the fight or flight thing. Some people fight and they turn that fight into getting stuff done. But at this stage, we're guessing. Because we've been so quick, we don't really know what the problem is. We just know that the customer had a problem. But at this stage, we are guessing if we think we know what the customer really, really wanted out of us. So the 5-minute recovery plan is an antidote to this quick knee-jerk reaction led with apologies and quick fixes. It's about just turning the whole thing on its head. And I want to now show you what that looks like. What does this first 5 minutes actually look like when we're trying to recover from a bad situation? And when I say 5 minutes, I'm not being ambitious. It really is that quick. And in fact, I'm even going to say that it might not even take as long as 5 minutes to turn a situation round. Now, I'm not talking about the technical fix. I'm not talking about getting the widget fixed or the shipment sent or the network back up again. I'm talking about all the essential things that need to happen before that. Okay, the first thing is, here are some main features. The main feature is that the 5-minute recovery plan is definitely emotions led. It's about the feelings that the other people are having. It's about repairing things in the correct order. It's also about slowing down. Slowing down so that we can think straight. And I'm going to say a bit more about that in a minute. But when there are a lot of feelings in the room, whether we care to admit it or not, we can't think well. So an important part of disaster recovery is to slow down the action so that you can be absolutely at your best. Now, to do that takes a brave person. You've got to have a thick shell. But your ability to take control of yourself is going to be repaid tenfold when it comes to taking control of the situation. But you're the first one who has to be in control. Okay, so here is the ABC of the 5-minute recovery plan. First of all, fix the feelings. If you've been hanging around me for any length of time, you won't be surprised to see this. So what's this about? Well, it's now coming out in the literature, and it has been for a number of years. I was doing some extra scanning around, and it so happens that my hunch, or at least the early knowledge on neuropsychology was that we have billions of circuits within us, electrical and chemical circuits within us. Obviously, the chemicals go through our veins and through tissue and arteries, and the electrical stuff happens on the sheaths of the muscles and also within our brains. You'll know that they travel across the dendrites and synapses, and things go sparking between the synapses, so on and so forth. It's an incredibly complex process, but at the centre of this is the notion of the circuit, which I want to draw for you now. Okay, so imagine this circuit, and like all good circuits, there is a circuit breaker in here. Now, for the pedants among you, if you studied your physics or any time recently, you'll know, there we go, because often I miss out the power source, and people say, oh, how is the circuit powered? There it is. It's right there in front of you. Anyway, so what does this circuit represent? Well, these two light bulbs, this one here, could have been the other one, but it's the first one I chose, represents our ability to communicate. When the circuit is operating okay, these two light bulbs, the one that represents our ability to communicate and the other one, our ability to think, are lit. Everything is fine. It's working wonderfully. The problem occurs, there we are, let's do some light. There we are, that's quite fancy, isn't it? The problem occurs is when we have too many feelings. At that point, quite rightly, and the threshold is different for all of us, at that very point, something flips inside most of us. This is the circuit breaker. This makes sure that we don't blow the proverbial fuse, or worse still, our light bulbs. So at some point, different for all of us, we check out. We stop being our best intellectual selves. Excitement turns to fear. And so what we have to do, and by the way, the same is also true, and I could do an exact replica for what's happening at the other side, and I'm going to come on to what you do about that. But this is exactly the case for our customer as well, be they internal or external. So they have a parallel process going. When the feelings get too much, they flip out too. And so this stops for both of us. So what happens in that first few minutes is really about getting a grip of the circuits in ourselves and then in the customer figure. It's about repairing feelings. So if we start to repair stuff, not feelings, but stuff, we don't really know what's gone wrong yet. We might start to apologise, but we don't know what we're apologising for. We're not ready to think, and they're not ready to get sorry. They're not ready to get a solution. And often what happens is we start to help in a way that's not wanted. We start to apologise in a way that's not wanted. So one of the most important things to grasp at this stage is to not apologise. When we're most inclined to do so, it is the most important thing to not apologise. They're not ready for it, and you don't know what you're doing yet. You can't do. Your circuit's blown, and so is theirs, or at least tripped. So you have to, this is where it's the bit about being brave, about being the tortoise with the thick shell, moving slowly and bravely, and waiting to do some thinking before you apologise. Now, how come this works so well? And indeed, it really does work well. Well, one of the studies that I dug up recently was UCLA. They have a big presence on the internet, and this is in fact back in 2007. And this study, it was one of the ones that's been done around the world, which actually shows us, it reminds us, or at least it indicates to us, why does talking to people about our feelings work so well? And I was going to show you all kinds of brain scans and stuff like that, but it's a bit disgusting at 9:47 on a Friday morning. So let me just tell you the short version. The reason that talking about our feelings works is because when we are having feelings, they are being emitted by two little creations called the amygdala. We have two of these. Amygdala, in fact, is the Greek for almond, because the Greeks figured that these amygdala or amygdalae were actually almond-shaped. And I often think that actually saying that someone's going nuts is not rude or unpolitically correct or politically incorrect is actually true. Their nuts, their amygdala, are actually firing all sorts of neurotransmitters to say everything is going to hell, it's really wrong, I'm frightened, I'm angry. So these little things fire out a whole load of neurotransmitters. Now, the interesting thing which these various studies, including the one done at UCLA back in 2007, point out is actually when we start to talk about our feelings, we only have to name our feelings, and immediately the amygdala calm down, at least on the fMRI scans, and some of the prefrontal cortices get really energized, and we start to think about the feelings. When we start to think, of course, we start to make more sense. So that's the science behind it. Now let me explain how to actually do this, how to fix the feelings. Because people say, okay, well, I get it. I can just about talk about my feelings, but how do I get someone to talk about their feelings? How do I draw out the feelings in the situation? Well, we do it by looking for three types of data, three things in what the customer is saying and doing, or not saying and not doing. How they sound, how they seem, what sort of feelings do they seem to be having, and what do those feelings seem to be about? Now, if we're being really clever, we can try and figure out, well, why are they feeling so annoyed about the book not arriving on time or the network going down? It's because it's happened 3 or 4 times this week. Now, it's not going to take you that long to figure it out in reality. But those are the questions that we need to answer about the other person. And then we call those answers out. We call them out not as a question, but as a humble hypothesis. And this is how it sounds. Here are some random examples. John, you sound very annoyed with us for taking so long. You're obviously frustrated that I haven't been able to get the board's approval yet. Jane, I can see that you're really disappointed that we haven't been able to supply the new part. So in each of those 3 cases, you heard me talking about the feeling, you sound, you seem, you're obviously, the what about, and the reason. Now, these are guesses, but they're very educated guesses. We are very, very good at spotting feelings in other human beings, but we very rarely make use of it. I was in a meeting with somebody a couple of days ago. He sells funds. I mean, he attracts millions and millions, hundreds of millions of investments into funds. And I could tell him in the conversation that he knew exactly what the person was objecting to, or rather he heard the words and he seemed to pick up the sentiments. But what he did, he went into fixing mode. Instead of trying to show the potential client that he'd picked up the feelings, what he actually did was went straight into a rebuttal, which is a typical salesperson's thing to do, is to explain why the objection doesn't matter without even raising or naming the objection. Now, in case I need to emphasize it again, I'm going to anyway. At this stage, you still don't apologize. There is no need yet to apologize, and in fact, that's not the thing that is uppermost in the punter's mind, in your customer's mind, so don't do it. Okay, let's move on to the second step now, and this is fixing the trust. Now, for me, this is about clarifying and confirming the biggest, worst consequence. Now, in a sense, it is part of this little thing that I showed you as well. It's the about bit, but it's really re-emphasizing that, because actually when you empathize a couple of times, they might somewhat change the story, or rather deepen the story, and you need to be listening out. What is it that I or we have done that's really super messed it up for this customer or this client or this colleague of mine? And the trick here, if we call it a trick, but the way to be really successful is naming it as it really is. So be specific about the damage. You need to be specific to check out your assumptions so that you know what to fix. And you need to be specific so that the customer or colleague recognises that you're willing to face the problem and that you understand the correct problem. They need to be sure that you actually got it. So you need to, in a sense, almost apparently make it worse by pointing out where the damage is. What's gone wrong? There is no point, and in fact it is very damaging, and think about the time when something happened, either if you're buying a service or you're monitoring or managing a service provider into your organization, where they try to put a gloss on what was going wrong. They tried to make it less worse than it actually was. How infuriating is that? Because they point out all the nice bits and you're trying to say, hang on a second, no, that's not how it is. It's actually like that. So don't gloss over it. There is a term, isn't there? The unvarnished truth. And talking in terms of the unvarnished truth is not only honest and ethical, but it also breeds trust. The trust that has been weakened or broken by the thing that's gone wrong, the service that hasn't been provided. You can fix that by facing the worst of it. How does this sound? This sounds something like this. I've got 3 separate, disparate examples for you. It sounds like the worst part about all this, Jane, was that it's wasted so much of your time. So the main problem, Peter, for you has been that you haven't been able to roll out your campaign on time. So the worst thing is that you're now way behind on production. Pointing out the worst fault will let them see that you're prepared to face the worst and that you really understand what the problem is for them. And guess what I'm going to say next? Even now, do not apologise. It's not time yet. Because what people are really interested in at this stage is actually fixing the thing that has gone wrong. Now, if it's something big and needs a number of different people around your organisation to make it happen, that doesn't matter. That's not really what we're talking about here. You're not expected to dive under the metaphorical bonnet and get your set of spanners out. In fact, that's probably about the worst thing you can do, because you'll almost certainly get it wrong and go charging around your organisation, telling people to do things, half of which are not even relevant, but you will manage in that way to not only get the solution wrong, but also annoy a number of your colleagues. What I mean by fixing a thing in this particular instance is this. There are 3 different things that we need to bear in mind when we are fixing. And this is about describing what's going to happen to the customer or your colleague to make things go right again. And there are 3 things that I'd ask you to bear in mind. Number 1, I. Never, ever we. Now, there's a lot of, I think, I am going to be polite today, exceptionally. There's a lot of talk around, and it was very trendy to say things years ago. There's no I in team and all that kind of stuff. I think teams realistically are made up of I. They're made up of individuals. And when customers are dealing with the team, they don't want to deal with the team. They want to deal with another single human being. This particularly struck me the other day when very uncharacteristically, if it can be very uncharacteristically, Apple put out a major update. In fact, it was a whole new operating system. And it was a complete shambles. It made a number of other really important apps that I have on my Mac keep on crashing. Now, that's cut down now, and I think there was a background process going on that made everything grind to a standstill. The problem was I sat there and I think, who do I actually ring? Who can I talk to who can fix this? You can't just phone Apple and say, oh, I'm really annoyed, I'm really disappointed, I'm tired, I'm fed up and I need to get something out of the door. Who do you talk to? So one of the most important elements of fixing the thing is to be you standing by yourself with all your team and support and organisation behind you, but you and the customer, you taking personal responsibility. The second thing is being brief. The client, internal or external, is not interested, as I have found many times to my cost when I've tried to explain what I think is a really interesting process and why we're doing it like this, and they don't really care about my grasp of psychology. They just want it done. Your internal customer or external client just wants it done. They don't want the whole $9. They just want you to tell them briefly what's going to happen and what you're going to do about it. And the third element is the word today. I'm particularly fond of the word today. At the moment, we've got builders in, and fortunately, we have a fantastic heating engineer. I've known him for years. I've actually waited 3 months to held up the job for 3 months because I wanted him. And I wanted him because I knew that when he was going to when he said he'd turn up, he would. Well, maybe not the first time. But when he said, I'm coming today, I knew he was coming today. And he stayed from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he kept on doing that today. So those are the three biggest sort of subtext or elements to fixing the thing. I am going to do something today. So this is the moment that you've all been waiting for. You are now allowed to apologise. But here are a couple of cautions, and I just want to also put some words in your mouth as well. You'll see the ruler has come up again. Again, when you apologise, make it brief. When you apologise, try to, how shall I put it, resist making multiple apologies. So do it once. Just say one really good apology and focus on the thing that was the most important. And then be quiet. Pause. Now, if you're not quite sure what words to find and you're worried about running off at the mouth, as we say, then here's a particular formula that I think works really, really well. We need to say 3 things. And these are made as very short. These statements are very short. 1, we say how we feel or how I feel. I might choose the word embarrassed. 2, what about? That I've knocked out your production systems for the rest of the day. 3, why? Why am I so embarrassed about that thing? Well, I'm really embarrassed that I've knocked out your production system for the rest of the day because I've promised you faithfully, and my colleagues did too, that it wouldn't happen again. And it has. And then pause. As I've just said, I pause to let the message sink in. Again, this is about taking personal responsibility. This is about people believing the apology. People won't believe the apology at the beginning if you make it while you're gabbling, while they're all hot under the collar, disappointed, angry, worried, frightened about what's going to happen to their organisation, what their CEO's going to say. It might be the CEO wondering what their chairman's going to say. Apologies don't count for anything at the beginning, but they're everything at the end. Because you're calm enough and knowledgeable enough then to know what you are apologising for. So, it's specific, it's once, and it's brief. Okay, I promised in the invitations that I was going to explain, albeit briefly, how to actually roll this out to an organisation. Now, what tends to happen with these things is that when an organisation decides to take its customers seriously, and it's usually when they've just had bad news from customers, what tends to happen is that they mount some huge, elaborate, expensive campaign which only serves to wake up the cynics, to wake up the people into recognizing that what is being done is actually plastic. Very few organizations really know how to do caring, be it towards customers or colleagues. So here are, I've got some things that you can bear in mind when you're thinking about how to wake up this caring, how to wake up this 5-minute reaction based on emotions, how to get people to do it. I think there's some background things to do with experimentation, actually dealing with real case studies, real scenarios as just after they've happened, and say, how does this work? What would have happened if we'd said this or that? It's about giving people feedback, and it's about practice. But mainly, it's about leaders doing it. I want to hear leaders at the top of the organisation saying, this is how you do it. Let me show you. And then encouraging people off the diving board to experiment. In order to do that, not only do the leaders have to experiment and try stuff out, role play, that's what we're talking about. In a meeting, actually talking about how to say it. But during the experimentation, and when you overhear things in your team as a team leader or as a director of an entire division, thank people for doing this stuff, for having a go, especially for the listening. If you hear people listening, feedback. Tell them that you've noticed. It is the most important, as I think you might see by now, the most important thing that they can do. And it's the most difficult, it so happens. But bottom line is experiment, and the man at the top or the woman at the top needs to dive in first. They're the ones who can get people to have a go at this stuff for real. And it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. The next thing, some don'ts. Do not make this about customer care. This is not about jollying the customers along. This is not about taking them out to dinner. It's not about filling them up with goodwill and nice words. This is actually about paying attention. This is also about, and this is another do not make it theoretical. Don't talk about customer care. Don't talk about the theories and models of how to keep your customers. Don't talk about all the systems that you can institute and develop to keep your customers loyal. Do behaviour. That's where it's at. It's at behaviour. Practiced from the top. Do it. Okay, so that's the material that I have for you this morning. It'd be great to hear now what you're thinking. I'm going to open up my control panel here and see if there are any questions. So yes, this is a good time put your questions. What has this got you thinking? Would this work for you? Do you do it? Have you seen it done? Has it been done to you? Look into the questions pane and type away any thoughts or queries you have. Kate, here we go. Kate's reminded me or taught me that it was actually Robert Greenleaf who wrote about servant leadership first. Good old Robert. So well done him. Now, first question. What if the reason they are annoyed or upset is for emotional reasons, e.g. with colleagues because I feel he undermines me or doesn't value my efforts? This is less easy to fix. Yes. In the sense of actually taking action. But here, interestingly, Kate, the fix is about getting the person to understand what they could be doing to resolve the situation for themselves. And the way to do that is to go straight back to the listening, Kate. So what this is about is actually paying attention to the individual and saying, this is going to sound like, David, you sound really fed up with the fact that Peter keeps on undermining you amongst the team. So you're not just fed up about being undermined, but you're also annoyed because before he arrived, everything was fine. So we keep on replaying to the individual what they're telling us. We help them to hear themselves. And as they do so, as would be the case for you, they start to think about the assumptions that they're making. They're starting to think about the story that they're telling themselves and the story that they're telling you. And in that act, they start to develop their own solution. So this is one of the ones where the solution belongs to the individual who has come to you. They have it. It's for you to listen to them well enough and to empathise with them well enough and often enough for them to hear their own solution. There is no need for you to intervene. And in fact, even if you could, it's almost certainly not the best thing you could do. So listen the heck out of this guy or woman and let them hear the solution for themselves. So hopefully that works for you, Kate. Any other questions or thoughts or reactions to the material that you've heard this morning? Marie has one for us. I used this just after I'd listened to another webinar on difficult conversations. I wonder who did that one. It really does work. I picked up the phone and I had a customer complaining about something that I had nothing to do with and was about another department. I used this technique and the customer in question thanked me for listening as she said it was the first time she felt acknowledged. So thank you for that one, Marie. The whole listening piece, for me, even in the absence of a technical fix, is probably it is the most important element. But I know that most organisations, most heads of customer service and customer service professionals actually want there to be a technical fix at the end. But rest assured that whether it's there or not, if you manage to listen, it will actually make a lot of the things that have gone wrong go right, because the customer has actually had time to settle down and think about what they would like, and to notice you and that you're a human being and so on and so forth. So thanks for the reminder, Marie. Any more questions before I just go on to the summary? It's 13 minutes past 10. Any more questions or thoughts or reactions to this routine that I've presented you with today? One from Helen. Our staff are managed remotely and often when things go wrong, we write to them. Can we use this technique in letters? Yes, absolutely. It's second best, but that's not bad at all. So definitely you write out the empathy. Dear Mr. Stevens, I was, you're obviously really annoyed. You notice I didn't apologise. You're obviously really annoyed about the fact that this happened or the chain broke or whatever. And this is what I'm going to do about it. And then the apology at the end. Absolutely. And then that really, really does work. Kate, Kate says, interesting not to say sorry too early as it is a natural reaction. Yeah, absolutely, Kate. It is a natural reaction. It's one based on fear and the wish to stop the firefight, as it were, and think about childhood days in front of teachers and parents and all that kind of stuff. That's where it's from. Susanna's got a question. Susanna G, I'm going to come back to that in a second because I want to make sure that we end on time for people who absolutely have to get away. So bear with me. So back to final thoughts. So 3 things to leave you with. Firstly, lead on emotions. This is really about solving the emotional problem before you can solve the technical one. If you don't solve the emotions, they're not going to buy the technical solution. And if they do, it'll be begrudging and it will not fix the customer service problem or the feelings that they need to have about you to continue to buy from you or deal with you. The second thing is be brief. When somebody is upset, they're not in the mood for a lecture or the entire tour of your factory or purchasing system or fixing system. And thirdly, sorry comes right at the end. I think that's probably sunk in now. It is totally useless and in fact even inflammatory at the beginning. Kate, and in fact there are a few other questions that have come up, so let's get cracking on the questions. Okay. So Susanna G. Hi Paul, in my industry quite often we are dealing with clients for whom there are no technical solutions. When would be the right time to offer some form of compensation benefit in the process to ensure we do not lose the customer completely? Very interesting, Susanna. I did my PhD in the study for it, a 9-month study, in a call centre. They wouldn't call themselves a call centre. They were totally delightful and highly professional, etc., etc. And they were very small, and they hated the thought they were a call centre. Anyway, be that as it may, it was an electricity transmission company, and very often there wasn't an immediate solution that those people could offer. They could just tell you that you were one of 573 people who had phoned in that morning, and they could tell you that it had been acknowledged. They couldn't tell you when your electricity was going to come back. They couldn't necessarily even tell you if they'd found the fault yet, or indeed even if the truck was on its way. So I have some experience of when there is no solution. Now, what they became very good at was 2 things. One was not asking for the postcode as the first thing that they said when the customer rang up complaining. We got them to stop that very fast because they realised that when somebody says, my electricity's been cut off and I've got the Christmas lunch in, asking for someone's postcode, please can I have your postcode? Which is an important bit of information, but was not the thing that was uppermost in the customer's mind. So we stopped them asking the postcode, but the compensation, interestingly, that look upon that as at the end, and preferably if there is a fix after the fix, but definitely at the end where the apology goes, and to make sure that the apology has been received first and that you really meant it from the heart. And please do not say as an act of goodwill. Now your company lawyers might think otherwise, but I really believe that the I belongs there. I want to send you this. I'd like to do that. Now, there's some legal beagle somewhere in your building who may say, oh, but it mustn't prejudice us. It has to be a full and final settlement, etc., etc., etc. That's for you to tangle with your legal people. But I'm pretty sure that there are very few lawsuits, and I don't know, I haven't done my research, which resulted in companies deciding that you mustn't say I. But yeah, and it's not as an act of goodwill. It's to say sorry. So that's it, Susanna. Hopefully that works. Marie likes the idea of personal responsibility for the next topic. It's gaining popularity. Thank you, Marie. And I think that's it for the questions. So if you've been hanging around, yes, there were quite a few of you, actually about half of you hung around. It was lovely to see you again. Have a terrific weekend and see you next month. Keep the ideas coming. Take care. Bye.